Welcome to the Global Roundtable organized by the Global Foundation for Democracy and Development. Today we are going to talk with Mr. Botnaru, who is Director of General Assembly and ECOSOC Affairs Division at General Assembly. Welcome, Mr. Botnaru.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Thank you for joining us today, and it's a pleasure to host you because you probably know that our institution is affiliated to the United Nations, to ECOSOC, to DPI, and we participate very actively in all United Nations activities open to NGOs. So it's a pleasure to have this conversation today.
It's an honor to be here. I'm really aware of what you are doing. I think it's very useful. And though you didn't mention the General Assembly, but I hope that you are all following closely the dealings that are done in the General Assembly as the only universal, one of the main only universal bodies. And if I will say that we adopt about 300 resolutions per year.
300?
Yeah, about 300. That's already something. But if we will go into nitty-gritty how all of these resolutions are worked out, then you will find out the General Assembly is really very important, doing a lot of job, and that's the only place where you have big countries, huge countries and small countries, and they all have one.
Working together.
And they have all one vote. So where they are equal, it's really in the General Assembly.
Thank you. I'd like to quote something that I found on your internet website about your institution, and it says, the staff members of the General Assembly and Economic and Social Council Affairs Division, your division, are the conference management brain trust of the Secretariat. That is to say, its institutional memory on the rules of procedures and best practices of the intergovernmental bodies that the division supports. They serve as the repository of all information on the work of those bodies past and present, from the General Assembly to the most confidential group of experts, for which they provide both conference management and substantive services. And now it says, they function as gentle but authoritative guides before, during and after meetings to ensure that everything moves along smoothly and carefully, both in planning and in execution. So my question for you is, how do you do that?
Well, that's actually the Secretariat of the General Assembly and ECOSOC and all the substantive bodies of the ECOSOC. So the secretaries are within my division, which is the Chief General Assembly Affairs Branch, which services the General Assembly and the Office of the President of the General Assembly, which is pretty big. Then you have the secretaries of the four main committees. Well, this is the first committee that is dealing with disarmament, the second with economic and social issues, the third committee, human rights and social issues, and the fourth committee, which is decolonization mainly. So this, you know, there are 6 main committees, but 2 of them are outside our division, and that's the 5th, which is with the Department of Management, and the 6th with the Office of Legal Affairs. In addition to this, the Secretary of ECOSOC is also in our division, and of course secretaries of all those subsidiary bodies that belong to ECOSOC. So what we are doing, I will just take the General Assembly because it's more well known, but the structure of our work is the same. Already in just on Friday I've signed a memo, a so-called implementation memo, which goes to all the departments, where it specifies which department is to deal with which part of resolution, who is writing the reports of the Secretary General, who is dealing with the follow-up on implementation from the Secretariat side. Today I have signed another memo that it's sharing with the departments the preliminary list of items of the 68th session. So we already started in January planning for the next session. And this is, first of all, this is the agenda, since agenda of the any session of the General Assembly is the responsibility of the Secretary General. So we put all of these items together that are mandated by resolutions already adopted during the main part of the session. We send it to all the departments, and then it is issued as a document. So this is the first document. And then we follow with this development. So this is so-called parliamentary documentation. Mm-hmm. This is the Bible of the General Assembly, because they are following strictly with which item. If a member state or the Secretary General would like to introduce an additional item in the agenda, then it will have to go also a different path through the General Committee and then General Assembly, and then it will be introduced into the preliminary agenda of the next session. So you have items already there, which are by resolutions already adopted, and also we can work with those additional so-called supplementary items. So all of this documentation, so-called parliamentary documentation, is drafted by this division. That's very important because we have to follow carefully with not only with the letter of the resolution, but also with the understanding. And what is different between committees and the General Assembly, that people who is dealing with the General Assembly, staff who is dealing with the General Assembly, they have also to deal with substantive issues. Not always we can find out which department can help on the substantive side of that issue. So that's why it's very important that the institutional memory on that item, on those developments, is with this division, so that we can advise the new President of the General Assembly when he is coming, what is the background of that issue in the General Assembly, or we can even make recommendations to the Secretary General.
So you're really like safekeepers of the institutional knowledge proceedings, and at the same time you're kind of this background mechanism that makes sure that everything runs smoothly.
Absolutely, and on the mechanism that everything should run smoothly, that's the fact that we are always matching all kind of proposal, all kind of developments with the rules of procedures. You know, right. Many times I'm saying that rules of procedures makes all member states equal, because those are
apply to all equally.
That's the law, and those applies. And Secretariat role in this is very important.
So from your point of view, what does it really take to run a meeting like General Assembly smoothly? From your experience, if you could sum it in a few words.
Yes. Well, first of all, we need to know. First of all, that's to make some kind of research and see, using so-called institutional memory. Second, that's planning. And planning, that means, first of all, the President of the General Assembly, then Secretariat services, then member states. So we have mechanism on working with this. We work on a bilateral basis personally with the Office of the President of the General Assembly. Then we inform member states after it is agreed how we proceed, and we have to explain the rules of procedures according to which we will handle that meeting. And then we inform member states through a journal announcement what will happen and what are the items and any procedural issues that we need to explain. And then we will prepare the so-called procedural notes for the President of the General Assembly, which he will use when conducting the meeting. Because it's not a secret, there are new people always in the GA, be it the President or be Vice President who will replace him. So they have always the template of that meeting. And of course, at the beginning, he will announce the item, he will announce what is the background of this item, and he will announce if there were already debate on that item, then this meeting will be differently. That means that we cannot have the second debate, but we will adopt a resolution. So not one meeting is repetitive. Meetings are always different. So we have to put all of this together so that we are within the framework of the rules of procedures. We take into account any wishes by the President, and we take into account any wishes by any member states, so that we keep those parameters exactly as they are designed in the rules of procedure. Sometimes we have to be creative. I remember when, usually for the acting head of states, we have a scenario how we are having that minute of silence, and then regional groups are speaking and so on. And this is done only for acting head of states and government. But then an ambassador approached us and said, look, the former first president of X country passed away, and we would like to have something in the General Assembly. And that's not a practice that is to happen. But I know that that ambassador has instructions from home to have it done. Right. So, of course, here we put together some kind of wording that the President will say it just himself in his personal capacity to express condolences to that delegation that the first president passed away, which in this case, we are not breaking, we are not establishing a new practice. And that suddenly I see that ambassador on a point of order, so he took the floor and thanked the president, and so we have about 8 minutes of taking this item without actually putting it into the program. And in the end, the ambassador was so happy because it was very well received at home, and at the same time there were no breaking of the rules.
So there is also diplomacy. So it's not only the institutional memory, logistics, but it is a diplomatic body.
Member states are our clients, and making them satisfied, predicting their needs, and trying to find in advance how better to approach this or that question so that they really can, because mostly we are dealing with arrangements. This is a servicing, 80% it's a servicing division. So it's very important that the clients, when they come on with something unusual, when they feel that if we go in a traditional way, that their purpose or their plan will not exactly be reflected as according to the instructions at home. Then we need to be creative and find some ways that everybody will be okay with it, and at the same time the main sponsor will also have to report. So it's a pro-creative, I will say. It's a creative attitude when listening to them, when planning, and when looking for all kind of precedents that can be very helpful in dealing with today's issues.
When you talk about working, so you're working with General Assembly, you're working with the ECOSOC, you also work with the Trusteeship Council, correct? You work with the member states. How are you most helpful to all of these partners? How would you say, what's your role, the most important role to each and one of them?
Well, the most, ECOSOC is less that we are involved in. We have only the secretary, and there are a whole division and department of economic and social affairs that are dealing with all the substantive part of the ECOSOC. So mostly in ECOSOC we are mostly with, I would say, procedural and logistical arrangements with ECOSOC. But with the General Assembly we are dealing mostly, and of course our main developments, our main efforts are to help and to support the Office of the President of the General Assembly, and also to make this link between the Office of the President of the General Assembly, UN Secretariat, and Executive Office of the Secretary General, so that this works very smoothly. And I must tell you that especially with this Secretary General, he has a very positive and helpful and supportive attitude toward the General Assembly. It becomes a normal practice that he briefs the General Assembly on all the most important developments, even on his trips. They have actually weekly meetings with the President of the General Assembly. So I will say that the profile with this Secretary General, the profile of the General Assembly is very high. But also with, we have to coordinate, since everything comes to the General Assembly, we have to coordinate with the secretaries of the main committees. You know that a resolution adopted by a committee is not yet a resolution. It's not yet a legal mandate. It's only after it is adopted finally in the General Assembly. So we have a lot of coordination work. You cannot have an item discussed before you have documentation ready. Documentation is drafted by other departments, but in the end responsibility to have everything on the table when the GA begins its meeting, it's our responsibility. A lot of coordination. When you have this kind of summits like Rio, when you have any summits here, especially September events, the GA, we coordinate with absolutely all the departments, all the logistical organizational issues, so that everything goes smoothly. And of course it takes a lot of time from receiving requests for passes to the GA hall until finding additional team of interpreters to have this meeting continued after 6 o'clock, because you have a lot of head of states and government history.
Let me introduce Margaret Hayward, who is with us. She's our representative at the United Nations, and I think you know her well already.
Good to see you once again, officially.
Yes, indeed. I just had a question about the relationship between the UN Secretariat and NGOs. A lot must have changed in the last few decades. How do you see that collaboration evolving?
I think this is relations between UN and NGOs, this is a must. And well, it's well known. DESA has a section that are dealing with this. DPI has a, so there are units almost in each department that are dealing with this. I will, and it's a well known. I will say that mostly what the GA is doing, and I will tell you that probably we are not very much satisfied now how the General Assembly, because General Assembly, it's an intergovernmental body. First of all, you have member states, you have observers, and that's it. Nobody else can participate in the work of the GA. But I think that member states came with a lot of ideas lately that opened the door for the non-governmental organizations. First of all, each president of the General Assembly is briefing NGOs at least twice per year about what is happening in the GA, what are the perspectives of this and that measures. That's very positive, and it started at the 60th session, I think, and it goes now as a must. Then there are these hearings between DPI and GA, and the president is also there. This is another channel to keep this dialogue. I remember when there was a report in 2003 on how to open more the General Assembly. I don't think we make a lot of progress on that in the GA per se, but different forms of different formats of work of the GA now did open the door for the NGOs. And first of all, this is thematic debates. I like thematic debates. Member states are thematic debates because unlike general debate, there we have much more proactive behavior by member states, dialogue among themselves, and that is open for the NGO. And not only is open, but the NGO are getting the floor. And I'm frequently, I'm the secretary of these gatherings, and I always pushing the chairperson, you know, to give, after 5 member states, to give the floor to one NGO, one civil society, a private sector, so that to make it more different.
Do you feel it has changed a little bit, the dynamics of the way the UN operates? Has it enriched the content?
Absolutely. We have the input from these structures, and it works. So this is thematic debates, which is there. Then you have roundtables, where also we always take care, together with the substantive department, they're recommending us NGOs who much more is involved in that area. So we will put that, and we will take care that they are also given the floor. Even at the summaries of these roundtables, NGOs, they are participating. Not so many can speak, but they will be represented. Somebody will take the floor. Then we have yearly so-called dialogue, official, under the presidency of the General Assembly, before World Summits. We have it always before MDG. It was also before Rio. So this dialogue, so-called, you know, where the main actors are not member states, but NGOs. But member states, so now we are giving the floor to more NGOs than member states, and they are only reacting. It's some, and this is done in the framework of the GA. So it is still not there. They cannot still take the floor into the GA without a decision by the GA. But more and more member states are more and more, you know, flexible in having them involved. And we have these incoming summits on disabilities, on indigenous, where I'm sure member states, either they will place these people as member of their delegation, or they will be taking decision to have this NGO speaking.
And they have valuable inputs, because many of them really specialize in very particular topics, work on the ground.
And I must tell you that when NGOs are speaking, member states are listening very carefully. They are reacting. So it is followed. It definitely has an impact on what is happening after that in the GA.
Oh, thank you.
Well, that's good for us to know. And I was also wanted to take the opportunity that you were here to hear more about the UN Paper Smart initiative. We partook in the Rio +20 last year, and that was the first paperless UN conference.
Not paperless, paper smart.
Paper smart.
We are not up there to go to paperless.
Although it felt paperless, I must say. I just wanted to know your views on it and whether it's going to make the organisation more efficient.
Yeah, it's good that you raised this issue. I think it's a project in development. It came out from our department, from Department of General Assembly and Conference Management, since we are the most producers of the paper in the UN. everything, all documentation in the UN is printed by our department. That's huge amount of money, carbon and paper and so on. So everybody knows. You know, in 2009, in March, I think Secretary General came with such an initiative and said, okay, if member states will do this, we will follow. If not, Secretariat itself will do it. So this project was developed. The first try was in Rio. It is so-called paper smart when, you know, in general lines, it's that we used to distribute tens of copies for each mission. And I myself, when I came at day one, I will have such a, you know, every day will come so many papers.
Well, we used to travel with empty suitcases to UN conferences because we knew we would fill them up with papers.
That's the issue. And I don't need all of those reports, and I cannot read all of those reports. That was just waste of paper. Now every mission is getting 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, as many as they wish, which languages, and then people is coming in the GA with that copy that they get there. We will not distribute another round of papers. Right. But if you have a delegate from home, from capital, whatever, you're asking for additional copy, they will give you. That's number one. So just reducing the number of printed documents. Number two is that if you want a statement to be to reach every member state, you need to bring 350 copies. If you have 5 pages, you can imagine how much paper will be there. Instead, you are sending your statement to us. We put it on the website of that meeting, and it is live there, and you take your iPad or any other tablet, and you can read it there. So it's also saving money. Those staff that will have to distribute it, and you know, if somebody is distributing by hand and you are sitting in the back there, you will get the statement after it was already read out, and then come another statement and so on. So that's the second one. But this is not only about paper. There are a lot of IT issues that will come. So last year resolution 66-233 and this year resolution 67-237 request the Secretary General to further develop this project, which, as I said, it's only the very beginning.
Mm-hmm. So it has been embraced by member states right now, or not?
I think it's on the pilot stage now. And member states requested a report with, they have some 7 questions, what the financial, training, human resources, all the implications. One issue is very clear, and I think that mood was pretty much present in the 5th committee, that there is no, now that you don't have a choice.
There is no going back.
It's only the issue when. So we need to work more, to work better with member states in explaining it, in explaining what are the positive sides of this project, but also developing, because it is not enough. And it's something to be developed from paper smart to IT secretariat, to paperless secretariat, if probably will come. I don't think it is possible and you want to go paperless, because here member states are producing documents and they are negotiating. Right. But the way is right, and it's going there. And we will submit at the 68th session, we will submit a report on this with all the details. And then I think that the next session, if member states say, okay, then we move. Will
there be any evaluation maybe on the impact, environmental impact, report, energy? Is that being prepared?
That report is requiring also to show in numbers what is the impact of all of this. So it's step by step, different delegations, different views, but here is the UN, and our responsibility is to explain and move on to show that it is much easier, it is better, it is this. And until member states will accept it, well, it will be, you know, in stone in a resolution. We are giving this as additional services, you know, because you cannot change anything until member states will have. So we are giving as an additional. So
you're spearheading the movement, and you're hoping it's going to gain momentum and final approval and get institutionalized.
We did it. We did the 6th committee last year. Everybody was happy. This year we will move to all other 4 committees, maybe except 5th, because there they really have a lot of paper, and we will see. So we will go with 4 main committees this year. I think we will go with the Commission on the Status of Women. We are working on this. Those bodies that are not, that don't have universal membership, it's easier. So there we already.
It's easier to get the consensus.
Yeah. But our concern is how it will work when we have a body with universal membership. Right. That's main committees, that the General Assembly. So I think in the context, or together with the CMP all this kind of IT new issues introduced, I think it will work. But it needs to
and
be
it will be
further
greatly
developed.
appreciated, I think,
Absolutely.
worldwide, and it will contribute to a positive image of the United Nations
Yeah.
today. And talking about the positive image of the United Nations today and its work and appreciation of its work, we also understand that you have been involved in the ideas and the process of the UN possible reform of the United Nations. Could you comment on that a little bit?
Of course I'm involved because I'm one of the directors, so I have a huge amount of staff who are working on all of this. The issue is that I think on the UN reform, you know, everything that is happening in any other bodies, in the Fifth Committee or in ECOSOC, or in the end they are coming to the General Assembly. I am the Secretary of the Intergovernmental Negotiations of the Security Council reform, and you know, this was said that we are at the fork on the road, and if the Security Council is not reformed, that it will be difficult to reform the United Nations. I think that there is some progress there, but at least we now moved from the 15 years of being within the open-ended working group on the Security Council reform. Now we moved for 5 years into intergovernmental negotiations, which is a more advanced stage of this. So I think that it is interesting to see that all P5s are participating and are very proactively participating in these negotiations. There are different groups, there are different visions, but in the end I think nobody says, not I think, but I know, nobody says that we do not need to reform the Security Council and to keep the status quo. Different options, different variants, group of 69, G4, S5, and so different.
Did the negotiations progress?
But the negotiations are moving forward. The ambassador the chair of this process, Ambassador of Afghanistan, is doing a great job putting together and trying to motivate member states to further steps. That's one issue. Now the General Assembly is dealing with the reform of the ECOSOC. All the reforms of any body is done in the GA, because GA is the universal one and the highest body. So now very serious negotiations on Resolution 6116, which is further negotiations, further reform of the ECOSOC. Now as an outcome of Rio, you know, the replacement of CSD with high-level political forum, Commission on Sustainable Development, to be replaced with the high-level political forum, which will have a universal membership. So where we place this high-level political forum and the ECOSOC, how to make so that they are not competing, but they are, you know, actually helping each other, because in any way ECOSOC is a charter body, and this one will be just another universal membership. So now they are working on the modalities for this high-level political forum. So maybe it will be useful with all of these bodies. It will be useful to have other bodies also working in 2 sessions like the General Assembly. You know, General Assembly was working from September to December, then everybody will pack and go home until next September. Now the General Assembly works the whole year. But still everything is concentrated in September, and we have so many events there that I see how head of states are coming to the G200 and they have 5 statements.
Running in and running out.
Checks one statement to read it, and then straight goes to another meeting. So that's I don't think that's helpful for anybody. Instead of taking also into account, it costs a lot of money to have so many parallel meetings. So what if we will have another high-level week sometime in May or in April, so that head of states and government are coming at a summit on sustainable development or in the economic bloc to see what is happening in the sustainable development.
So is
and
this
all of
part?
No, this is part of the
discussion?
ideas, part of the discussions,
Right.
so that make it more comfortable for member states to work and to have real results, and not just to say, another meeting there. And also to keep the sacrosanctity of the general debate, because the general debate sets the tone for the whole session. When you have head of states and government coming and speaking about their problem, but also about the old problem, world issues. Not old.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Botnaru. Thank you so much for your time. And we are hoping to continue this discussion further on in our offices, and then maybe when we visit you at the UN.
Thank you very much, and congratulations on what you are doing. Any steps that are taken to to explain people what is happening, what in the nitty-gritty of all of these processes, because sometimes you know, I'm told, oh, the Security Council, we know, yes, it was that decision, this decision. And I'm taking, look, ask me how these resolutions of the General Assembly, those are hundreds, some are repetitive, but to see just how people are, how delegates are spending hours just for one comma, where to be it at the beginning of that half of sentence or after.
And they have 193 opinions about that.
Absolutely. And not always resolutions are the lowest denominator. There are many. And, you know, and then we have this kind of events like this year with Palestine or other resolutions, you know. Then, well, you know, then we have country resolutions, so many country resolutions. And can you compare the last year country resolution on Myanmar and this year? They have the same title, but 80% is different, which means that something was moving in a better way, and we know all the developments that happened there. So you are proud that this happened just where? Not at the Security Council, in the General Assembly. That means it's effective. And as I said once again, it's equal. It's very democratic. So I am the patriot of the General Assembly.
Thank you so much. We do believe that. Thank you for your visit.
Thank you.
You have watched Global Roundtable, organized by the Global Foundation for Democracy and Development. We had the pleasure to interview Mr. Ion Botnaru, Director of General Assembly and ECOSOC Affairs Division at General Assembly.